Hey everyone, I'm Nifty. I run bitcoinplusplus. I was really excited about writing a cool talk about how to, whenever there's an exploit in code, one of the things, so I worked on Core Lightning for about full-time for about 5 years. I still occasionally help out with the project with like PRs, and there's some bugs that I need to go fix at some point. But one of the things that was cool about the project, and hopefully I'll do a talk and maybe post it online later, when you find an exploit in code or an exploit is relayed to your project, one of the things that's important to do as a maintainer of a project is to make sure that when the code gets shipped with the fix in it, you don't make it obvious that you're fixing an important thing. So that because this is open source, right? That means it's hard to hide fixes to problems just as much as it's hard to, because you don't want to like alert people that there's a fix coming until the fix has been added to the code and it's been patched and like shipped and you've given people enough time to update, at which point you can then let people know, hey, there's been a patch thing, etc. So we used to do this in Core Lightning. People would be like, hey, there's a bug. We'd have to figure out how to patch it, submit the patch to an open source repository, package up a fix, ship it on our normal, usually pretty normal release cycle. Give people enough time to update, tell everyone they should update, and then at some point in the future you can tell people what the bug is. Anyways, so I'm hoping I'll be able to do that. That wasn't originally what it was, hiding exploits in plain sight, but kind of from the maintainer perspective. Unfortunately, I was a little busy making conference stuff happen, so I didn't have time to put the talk together, but I promise I'll do it later. Instead, Judy's here from the Human Rights Foundation, who's one of our big sponsors for conferences this year. We're very grateful for their support. In addition to supporting conferences and events like Bitcoin++, HRF also has a Bitcoin developer grant program, which allows developers who are working in the space to apply for grants. You guys were really kind of, I think, HRF was one of the original projects. They used to do bounties. How many of you here have heard of the Cashew Open Cash Association project? Fun fact, Callie started working on that because he was going after a bounty that the Human Rights Foundation had put up for the best implementation of an eCash thing. So he created the Cashew protocol and has submitted it in response to this like challenge that the Human Rights Foundation has had. So I think they're great, and along with lots of other great projects that they've supported, it's been one of, I think, a really great supporter of like kind of both putting out, hey, these are some cool things that we'd like to see from a human rights perspective in Bitcoin, as well as I think challenging people to make sure that they're keeping an eye on the human side of what building freedom tech actually looks like. So this is Judy. Judy, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what your work is at the Human Rights Foundation and maybe how you ended up coming to work for them? That's
Sure. Okay, great. It works. So hi, everyone. My name is Judy. I work with the Human Rights Foundation. I'm on the Bitcoin Development Fund team. So I handle the Bitcoin Development Fund operations. So basically, it's about managing the grant application process. So first of all, how many of you have heard of the Bitcoin Development Fund? Okay, great. That's quite a number of people. So yeah, as you're aware, over time, what we've done is we now have an entire application process that starts off with the Bitcoin Development Fund form. And so what we usually expect people to do who want to apply for grants is they start off with that form. So that kickstarts your journey through our grant pipeline.
Run the gauntlet of challenges to end up the end with some sats from HRF right now.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, so I promise you guys we're actually trying to improve our processes. So I know maybe some of you have been in the pipeline for a while. So first of all, I'm sorry. But yeah, like we are improving our processes. So I hope over time it's going to get much easier. So that's one of the reasons why I was put on board as well to help out with that. And yeah, I'm around if you have any questions about that.
Here's a great question. So when you guys get applications in, is there anything in particular that you're looking for in applications? So like what kinds of projects might be eligible to get money from HRF? Is it like I'm working on an open source project in Bitcoin? Is it I found a bug and want to, I don't know, fix it? Like, what kinds of stuff for you guys, maybe like even historically, or like maybe like going forward, would you like to see maybe more of people applying for grants?
So generally, we have a very specific mission with the Bitcoin Development Fund. So just to summarize it, it's really making sure that Bitcoin and associated freedom technologies are useful tools for human rights activists and human rights defenders all over the world. So it's basically, what can you do that makes it easier for them to use this technology? So of course, if you find a bug and you want to fix it, that is important in the long run, because I'm just going to use something like Bitcoin Core, for instance, right? Let's say you find a bug in Bitcoin Core. That is important to fix, because obviously you want the technology to survive. Because a lot of these activists who are using Bitcoin in their work, they depend on its survival, for instance. Or let's say you find a bug somewhere in, Lightning, or maybe in some other associated freedom technology, let's say like Nostr or something like that, and you're like, oh, I want to work on fixing this, but I need support, for example. That's something that would align, because there are people that do need all of these technologies, and basically we want it to survive. A lot of people use this in their work. So these are some of the things that we would look at. And if you are trying to put in an application, what I would usually advise is really look at our mission. You'd see it on our website as well, and ask yourself critically, how does this align? Obviously, if you want to work on something like Web3 or like NFTs, I'm sorry, just forget about that, right?
Well, people can work on that, but HRF probably will not be supporting their grant application.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'm just speaking on the context of like the BDF, right? Like, if you want to do it as a hobby, that's on you, but don't go through the pipeline for that.
That's cool. So I think you kind of touched on something interesting, which is, HRF really wants Bitcoin to succeed. Like, if there's bugs, that's something that you guys are interested in supporting people fixing. Can you maybe say a little bit more about why Bitcoin is an important project for the Human Rights Foundation to be submitting, like taking their resources and the money from their donors and helping support the Bitcoin ecosystem? So basically, what we believe is that financial freedom is a very important cornerstone for human rights. I like to give examples. So one of the easiest ways for a human rights organization, or even just an activist, to be silenced is by limiting access to their money. It's a very fast and effective way for governments to stop them. And unfortunately, that is something that we see happening time and time again. You don't have to look too far before you find an example of how money is being weaponized against people who are trying to do something good for their countries, trying to do something good for their people, and trying to speak up against tyranny. And so what we realize is that Bitcoin is a very useful tool to overcome this challenge. And so it's important for it to survive, basically. And even when you have things like, communications, like, for example, using things like Nostr, it really helps them in their work in order to continue giving them a platform to speak out. So I think that's really what I mean when I say that we want this to survive, because just think about it. If you do not have access to your money today, you can imagine how embarrassing that would be for you, just as a regular person, not to now talk about someone who is actively speaking up for democracy. Like, maybe they want transparent elections in their country, and all of a sudden they don't have access to their financing. That can be a very embarrassing situation. And at that point in time, when you challenge people with their money, it's like you're forcing them to stop speaking out against tyranny. And that is definitely a problem. If people are not able to speak out openly, how do you expect positive change to happen? That's not going to happen, And so Bitcoin is a very useful way of breaking that cycle of silence. So yeah, like, obviously you want something like this to survive so that people have that platform. And even when you're looking at it in a lot of authoritarian regimes, like, finances are also weaponized against the people.
just regular people, even if you're not looking at it only from the human rights defenders aspect. I know like not many of us have one-on-one interactions with activists, but we do have one-on-one interactions with our friends or our neighbors or like people who are just the regular person on the street, right? Unfortunately, in authoritarian regimes, finances are also weaponized against the people as a whole. And that's definitely a problem, you know? And Bitcoin really gives people an opportunity to have something better. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the human rights angle is one that, as technologists, I think a lot of cypherpunks and early people were very interested in removing the power of the state to have a say over their money. And it's so cool, I think, to see the Human Rights Foundation really kind of start connecting the work that you guys activists are doing with the work that the Bitcoin technologists are doing, if that makes sense, and really trying to say, like, okay, you guys have built these really cool tools. Here's a group of people that really can use free, like, money without borders, so to speak, money that's self-sovereign, that doesn't rely on government, that isn't permissioned. How can we take the tools and the protocols that all these smart developers have built and developed and really kind of start connecting it to the work that activists are doing on the ground, right? So I've been to a few events that the Human Rights Foundation has run. They run something called the Oslo Freedom Forum, which is a really awesome opportunity to get to meet a lot of the activists that are working across the globe to protect human rights, both to transact but also to run their own government, so to speak. And it's been really cool to see Bitcoiners show up for these projects and I think really support the work that the Human Rights Foundation is doing to make these activists more effective at the work that they're doing. So that's really cool. Have there been any projects? So you help run the application pipeline for the Bitcoin Development Fund at HRF. Are there any projects that you've seen kind of come through the pipeline that are like maybe a good example of the sort of project that you guys are excited to support?
So right off the top of my head, I don't want to give specific examples of stuff that are still in the pipeline, but I can give examples of some that have already gone through the entire pipeline and eventually secured a grant. So I'm from Africa. I know there are not many of us here. So I'm going to speak from the African perspective. Now, in Africa, we have like over 50 countries, right? But the problem is, despite being such a large continent, we're not even really connected with each other. And that's a problem. So it's like, imagine you're moving from one border to another, just as a regular person, mind you, I'm not talking about it only from the activist perspective, just as a regular person. You have to go through a lot of hurdles in order to, one, get there, two, even like interact financially with your counterparts in the other place, right? So you can already imagine how difficult it is for an activist. For a regular person, it's already very difficult, not to now talk about an activist. Because unfortunately, our reality is that most of the continent is under authoritarian regimes. That's just a fact. It's very unfortunate, but that's just the case, right? But when you have like freedom technologies and like interesting Bitcoin tools, it helps to reduce that barrier. I like to use this example. It pops the top of the box open for a lot of us. And I think one of my favorite projects is Tondo. I don't know how many of you have heard of it. Yep, some have heard of it. That's great. So Tondo is basically a Bitcoin bridge that works in Kenya. I love that because it makes it easy for you to spend Bitcoin while the other person gets it as Kenyan shillings into their M-Pesa accounts. So M-Pesa is basically, just to summarize what M-Pesa is, it's like their mobile money system. So it's something that's pretty popular. Everybody uses it, like most people use it, most businesses use it. And so you don't really need to move around with a lot of cash when you're in Kenya, right? But just think about coming from another country into Kenya. You have to start thinking about changing your local currency into the US dollars. From US dollars, you need to get Kenyan shillings. That means you end up losing value throughout. Not to now talk about an activist moving from one point to another. They already go through even more hurdles than the regular person does, right? So this particular project makes it possible for you to spend your Bitcoin and literally transact like a local without having to explain so much to the other person that, oh, can you like accept some Bitcoin so I can make this transaction? And that just makes transacting really seamless. It's non-KYC. So someone who is, let's say for example, someone who's a refugee who had to flee a difficult situation, they are able to use this as well. Because just think about it, you flee from your country, you might not have been able to take anything like ID with you. And this is a real case. It happens, right? Or like you never really know what tomorrow might bring. You might be in that type of situation. And so just by having this type of bridge, you're able to survive. Because you could download a Bitcoin wallet that is like non-KYC, ask someone to send you some Bitcoin, and you can still survive. So it really opens up that opportunity for you to not be limited by the current system. So I really liked how that project makes this possible for a lot of people. And recently, there was an article written about how this person, first of all, I'm going to ask this question. How many of you are aware of the situation that happened in Tanzania some months ago? No? Right, so there was a situation in Tanzania, like some sort of political situation that happened, and so people's access to the internet was even cut off. So this person's mother somehow made it from Tanzania to the Kenyan border. Now this person had been teaching their mother to save in Bitcoin, right? Somehow she makes it to the border. Mind you, there's no internet, so like to contact this person's mother was already a bit challenging, right? She somehow makes it to the border. And they were able to send her help using Tondo. So you have a lot of stories like this, but I feel like having a project that we've supported being used in such a situation, it's amazing to see what, as a community, I'm not just saying it as, a single person, as a community, as everybody who's been working on Bitcoin, like, different parts of it have been able to achieve in this family's life is fantastic. And I like how we're able to, we're able to talk about there being options like this. Because when you think about the financial systems as we have it, it's very difficult to think of anything else that would have provided that level of help, and response to that situation. So I feel like these are things that, are powerful.
Was she able to get across the border then with the Tando? Did that help her like escape the Tanzania or?
The Tanzanian situation? Yeah, like as soon as she got to the Kenyan border, they were able to like use Tondo to make things like payments and stuff like that. So yeah, it was great because just think about, right off the top of my head, I can't think of any alternatives that she would have been able to use in that kind of humanitarian crisis. Like I said, as a regular person who just wants to maybe do something fun in another place, right? You're already not able to do this, not to now talk about someone fleeing a difficult situation.
You guys fund projects across the globe, right? So if someone wanted to apply maybe from Brazil or Argentina or Chile or maybe Africa, those are all like applications that you would consider equal to a project that's coming from like the United States, right?
Yeah, definitely. So like we've supported projects from like over 60 countries. Yeah, we've touched basically, a lot of the continents, and I feel that's something that I'm pretty proud of that, to be honest, because I know that there are situations when some places might feel ignored, but I feel we've done a pretty good job covering a lot of the world, let me say. So yeah, like we receive applications from all over the world basically, and it's not something that I think is taken lightly, let me put it that way, because you have a lot of people working on very interesting things, right? So yeah, it's not like, okay, let me just put it like this. I feel like the main thing that we're looking at really is mission alignment. So like, if you feel like, oh no, I'm from this corner of the world, like, do I stand a chance? No, apply. You get what I mean? Apply. Like, you never know, right? Just apply. Your application is going to get a fair look, that I can assure you of.
Oh, that's awesome. So if someone was in the audience, we're almost done. I guess, are there any current, so clearly it's aligned with the mission, which is to make access to freedom technologies maybe more accessible to activists and people working across the globe. Is there any other particular aspect of your mission that projects might be in alignment with?
Can you?
Yeah, when someone's making an application for their project, what kinds of parts of the Human Rights Foundation mission are good ones to tie to think about when they're applying?
Oh, okay. So yeah, when you're looking at our form, for example, we have all these categories for where your project falls under. So yeah, you can pick whatever category your project would fall under. But I think another thing to look at when you're looking at mission alignment, I would say the best way I would describe the situation is probably put yourself in the shoes of someone like an activist who's going to use this, and start critically asking yourself, okay, if I were in this situation, how would my project be useful? And so I think one thing I like to tell people is challenge yourself to also read some activist stories and try and understand. Because we can get so caught up with what we're doing, we don't really look at another person's story. So probably watch some of the videos of activists who attended the Oslo Freedom Forum. That's always a nice way of understanding that perspective. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hopping up here last minute with no preparation or anything to talk about the work that you guys are doing at the Bitcoin Developer Fund and the Human Rights Foundation. Is it okay if I share the link for the application to the Telegram group for people who are interested in applying?
Sure.
Okay, yeah. Great. And then if people have questions, of course, they can come ask you. I know we're over on time, but I think we have I think we're gonna hit. There's nothing after this. Maybe we have 5 minutes for the audience if anyone has any questions for Judy. I'm apparently really bad at leaving time for questions. That's okay. We'll be okay. Okay, cool.
Hey, thank you for the panel discussion, fireside chat. Some people recommend to grant appliers to apply to a bunch of different granting organizations. I'm curious from the perspective of the granting organization, how do you feel about that? Would you prefer individuals only apply to a single grant, or do you encourage people to apply to many?
So for us, we're not exclusive. So it's if you're applying to us, yeah, feel free to apply to a bunch of other organizations as well. We're not going to tell you not to. You can. If you do get a grant from them, I encourage you to be transparent about it, disclose. That would be great. But it's not like we stop you from applying to us if you have applied to other organizations.
Cool. Thank you.
Hi, Judy. Thank you. What is the level or the differences between the grants that you give for specific developers, projects, or educators? Do you have how do you channel those grants? Do you have, I don't know, 80% goes to developers, 20% of those grants goes to educators, or do you have any sort of separations of those levels, or it just depends on what type of people are actually applying and deciding about the different projects, for example? I don't know if I was clear. Sorry, I can rephrase it if you want it.
No, I understand you. To the best of my knowledge, no, we don't have that. Only a specific percentage goes to this, only a specific percentage goes to that. We don't have that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Got it. You don't have to just be sitting in the front to have a question, by the way.
Do you have a short list of a wish list for things that you would hope more developers focused on, either technical areas or just problem areas? Do you have any ideas that you want to share to developers?
We don't have a wish list per se. I think that's one of, I mean, I'm just speaking personally, right? I think that's why I encourage developers to watch some of the talks from activists who have spoken at the Also Freedom Forum. Because I think that would really help developers understand what kind of things people in these circles would need. 'Cause it's a challenging thing, right? Like having to think about it from the, ooh, technical, this thing's so much fun perspective to someone actually depends on my work, you know? And when you think about that, it really puts your work into perspective, you know? So that's just my own personal advice. Like, probably watch some of our talks. They're up on YouTube. You know, watch some of the talks from activists. Probably read some of their experiences. I encourage you all to also subscribe to our financial freedom newsletter. That's also very helpful for you to understand what's going on around the world. So yeah, probably this is something that would help provide some information or some like guidance of some things.
Yeah, like Y Combinator has their like call for startups where they're like, hey, these are interesting things that we think would make good startups in our program. I'm thinking it would be cool for like if HRF had like a list of like project ideas or something like, it would be cool if people were working on these things, just to give developers ideas.
I will take that to the team.
Yeah.
Any other questions? It's great. Well, Judy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming all the way from Kenya to be in
Nigeria.
Brazil.
I came in from
I'm
Nigeria.
sorry, Nigeria. Coming all the way in from Nigeria to join us for our Bitcoin++ here in Florianopolis. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you at future events. So
Thank you very much for having me.
yeah, thank you.